Previously on the Xenoblade Chronicles 2 review. Xenoblade Chronicles 2 is the worst game I've played since Frisbee with my son. There's good stuff in this game and there's bad stuff in this game, but the bad stuff ruins the whole game for me. All the stuff I got from the previous two Xenoblade games it does pretty well, but all the new stuff is pretty bad. And it's not bad because it's new, it's bad because it's bad. Why does the game tell instead of show? Why does everything have a weird name? Why are you constantly getting interrupted by tutorials? Why are all the tutorials all text? Why is the English dub so terrible? Why are the Nopons so annoying? Why does the main character suck ass? Why do the female characters look like this? Why do the female characters look like this? Why do the female characters look like this? Why do the character designs not fit the characters? And now, back to the review. I like to be fair in my reviews, so even when I have a negative opinion of a game, I'll still list the things I like about it. I was pretty negative in the previous episode, so I'll start this episode off with some of the things I actually like about Xenoblade Chronicles 2. But even some of the things I like about it come with an asterisk, you know? It's like, I like this thing about the game, but... For one, the music is incredible. While I have more of a personal connection to the soundtrack of the first game, I will admit that I think Xenoblade 2 has the best overall soundtrack of the three Xenoblade games. It's one of those soundtracks where you'll go back to an area and walk around just to hear the song that plays there again. And the music does a lot of the emotional heavy lifting during the cutscenes. But sometimes, and this is gonna sound kinda weird, sometimes it feels like the music is a little bit too good? Not saying that the game would be better if the music was worse. I'm saying that the fact that the music is so top tier, the shit quality of everything else stands out even more. It's a real left shark scenario. I like that the heart-to-hearts, the conversations between characters, are fully voiced this time around. However, I also think this game has the worst and dumbest heart-to-hearts. A lot of the ones that I've seen, the dialogue writing and what the characters talk about is pretty bad. You know what we should do in the English translation? Have the robot girl bark like a dog. Wait, what the fuck? What is it in the original Japanese version? Oh no! I like the tombstone mechanic for refighting unique monsters. That was a good addition. If you kill a unique monster, you just walk up to the tombstone and fight him again. It's great. I like that you have mercenary missions to send out your extra blades on missions to get free experience. I wish that you didn't have so many useless extra blades in the first place, and one mission will sometimes be over an hour long, but overall, it's a pretty good addition. You can buy entire shops in this game, and you get different benefits from doing that. I like that the battle animations are more fluid. In the previous game, you'd swing your sword once and then wait, and then swing it again. In Xenoblade 2, it actually looks like you're doing a combo. In the grand scheme though, I think this change actually hurts the battle system, but I'll get into that later. I like that if you use your arts at the right time in combat, you get a little boosty. It's almost like action commands from Mario RPGs. I like that you can level down your characters if you accidentally become too over-leveled but still want a challenge. I like how the title screen changes depending on how far you are in the game. Despite me complaining about certain characters in the previous episode, some characters I actually really like. Poppy and Zeke are pretty great, and across all three Xenoblade games, Morag and Bridget are literally my two favorite characters, especially Morag. She has the best introduction, she has the most agency in the story, she's the most mature party member. Despite being the most serious character, she has a ton of emotional range and depth. She has the best English voice actress, the voice tone and line delivery actually fits the character. She has the best battle dialogue, she's fun to play as in combat, she has amazing design, and she's one of the few female characters who doesn't have an over-sexualized design. And despite that, her design is very appealing. It's almost as if, I don't know, women don't need to be half naked with ginormous titties to look good. How about that shit? But of course, as she's one of the non-sexualized women in this game, they also make the joke that one of the other party members thought she was a man this whole time. Take it out of context, that's kind of fucked up if you ask me. However, for the last third of the game, she doesn't really do that much. Story-wise, she's just kinda there, but gameplay-wise, for me at least, I bench Rex and play as her instead. And I like that Xenoblade 2 got a lot of new fans into the series. For a long time, Xenoblade to a lot of people was simply, oh yeah, that series I heard was really good but haven't played yet. Many of these new fans try to convince me that Xenoblade 2 is the best one of the three despite its overwhelmingly glaring flaws, and they're entitled to their own opinion, but regardless, I'm glad that more people are into the series. I also like all the new memes around it. And because it sold really well, that means Monolith Soft is going to continue making Xenoblade games. I fully recognize that if a series goes on for long enough, there's gonna be entries that you're not gonna like, and that's okay. Not every game is for everyone. But considering that the next two Xenoblades after this one were improvements, Monolith Soft remembers how to make good games, so eventually they'll make another good one. Anyways, back to the game. And I said this in part 1, but I think it bears repeating. If you like this game, I'm not saying you're wrong, nor am I trying to change your mind. I'm just explaining why I personally did not like it. So you go through a ship with blades and drivers in your party, you know, the totally not evil guys in your group. However, you're locked to using Rex in this section, which means you're locked to not experiencing for yourself what blades and drivers can do, and journey through to find the sealed Aegis Pyra. Rex touches her sword first and accidentally bonds with it. The only way to break the bond between a blade and a driver is for the driver to die, so Jin quickly kills Rex. Short game, right? I fucking wish. This would potentially serve as a great teaching moment about the rules between blades and drivers. However, it's immediately undercut when Pyra talks to Rex's ghost and revives him. This is something the game does often, which in my opinion hurts the story. It'll set up the rules to its world, but then the first example it gives is an exception to that rule. After Rex wakes up and thinks he's at a Formula 1 track, Rex and Pyra go fight Malos, the main villain, in a tutorial battle. Which brings me to my next gripe, using fights against the main villains as tutorial battles. At this point in the game, it's not that big a deal, since it's only like an hour in and you're still learning the mechanics, but at multiple points through the game, it uses fights against the main antagonists as tutorials. The game amps up the fight and then ruins all the tension it builds up by just having you go through tutorials. So right before the battle, it's just like, I'm gonna kick your ass and rip your dick off. Or I'm not going to let you kick more ass and rip more dick off. I know this guy. He's kicked a lot of asses and ripped off a lot of dicks. This'll be our toughest fight yet. We can only beat this guy if we work together using the power of friendship. Come at me. Tutorial time! Did you think you were actually going to get to play the fucking game? No, stupid ass. It's an unlosable tutorial battle. Press the X button to stick your finger up your butt. Press the A button to lick Pyra's feet. Malos is the game's main bad guy. You fight this asshole 5 fucking times, including as the final boss. And 2 of those fights are tutorial battles that you can't lose, and halfway through 2 of the fights, they become unlosable story battles. Rewrite. Yeah, I'm gonna have potential rewrites to consider that maybe would make the story better, since the story we got very much feels like a first draft. Rex should have started the game as a driver, and Malos should have fought Rex before he died. I think it would have made more sense both through gameplay and storytelling. From a gameplay perspective, at no point for the rest of the game do you not fight with a blade, nor do you have the option to. So why play through the first hour without one? Why not have your crab fighting tutorials at the start focus on what blades and drivers can do? From a story perspective, let's say for instance Rex starts with, I don't know, a Brona, even though she has literally the most annoying voice in the entire cast, which is really saying something for this game.
Traitor, traitor, traitor! Nia, you're one of the baddies now, you villain.
Say Rex inherited Obrona from his dead parents or something. Maybe they have a conversation at the start and Rex asks her about his parents, but she has to remind him that she doesn't remember them, setting up the blades don't remember things from their previous lives after they're reawakened. Rex, using Obrona, fights Malos in gameplay and isn't strong enough. He does like 2 damage and loses to Malos in the gameplay and the story. Obrona returns to her core crystal, establishing that when a driver dies, the blade returns to their core crystal, rather than what happens in the actual game where the driver dies and then their soul is warped to the ending of Majora's Mask. Rex dies and you don't see what happens to the core. You then fight Malos again with Pyra this time and you visibly do like, I don't know, 100 damage. And through gameplay, the player's like, wow, the Aegis is really powerful, much more powerful than the average blade. In the actual game, you have no frame of reference for how powerful Pyra is because she's the first blade you have. The game tells you how powerful the Aegis is in cutscenes, but it doesn't show you through gameplay. Anyways, after that battle, even though you beat him during the gameplay, the game pretends that the stretch of the gameplay you just played through didn't actually happen. Get used to that. And then at one point, Pyra picks up the sword and starts fighting Malos herself, which is confusing because I thought that blades don't really fight, they empower their drivers to fight. During gameplay, the blade just stands behind you and pees on you and only jumps in during special attacks. But then in the cutscenes, she's back at it again like it's Krispy Kreme. Or is this another one of the exceptions to the rules about blades because she's an Aegis? You see where my confusion about this game setting up its rules comes from? Also, the burning sword audio is in sync during the cutscene, but always out of sync during gameplay.
Burning sword! Pyra, let's go! Rex, I'm with you! Burning sword!
Ah, right.
It's not like you use that attack about 200 times during the course of the game. Nia and Dromark realize that they're fighting for the obvious bad guys and help save you, and then your dragon grandpa flies in and saves all 4 of you. You get transported to Gormott, you finally get to walk around in a more open area. Here you learn 2 new mechanics introduced in this game, field skills and collection points, that are terrible. I'll explain them more later. You find Dragon Grandpa, who took too much damage while flying away and dies from his wounds. It's a really sad scene where the sad music is playing and Rex and Pyra are super sad and Azurda says his final goodbyes. It really makes you begin to feel for the character's struggles. Just fucking kidding! Azurda immediately revives himself with little explanation, contradicting the rules of the Blades and Titans life cycle that gets talked about later. The scene is played for laughs. Well, laughs. Azurda also does nothing for the rest of the game besides make the occasional pervy comment and withhold really important information about the bad guys since he was there during the prequel DLC. Rewrite, Azurda should have fucking died here, or the player should have done something to revive him. Having the death of a character happen early on in the story doesn't really affect the audience that much. However, seeing how the surviving characters react and seeing how their decisions are affected by that death set up the character's motivations for the story. It would have been more impactful for Rex to realize, oh, this was partially my fault because had I researched this job properly before taking it, which Azurda literally warned me about, then maybe this could have been prevented and he'd still be alive. I need to be more responsible in the future so that this doesn't happen again. Instead, Rex learns nothing from this, the scene is played for unfunny jokes, and Rex continues to be the same static character. This could have also been used to teach the player that when a Titan dies, they release core crystals, and then you could have that crystal turn into baby Azurda who rides in Rex's helmet, and he has no memory of his previous life, one of the most important themes of this game. That way when Jin gives his big villain speech about how he doesn't like that cycle, the player can be like, oh yeah, I remember that happening. He has a point. You see what I mean when I said this story feels like a first draft? Or maybe, God forbid, have the player do something to revive Azurda instead of just watching it happen in the cutscene. Say that Pyra can use her vaguely defined Aegis powers to help him, but you need to collect some ether items first. You gotta go burn a tree in your way, and that's how you do the field skill tutorial. Then you collect the items, that's how you do the collection point tutorial. That way, the player A does tutorials that tie into the story, B better understands that, hey, this is an exception to the life cycle, C, the Aegis has some really special powers, she's a very special blade, and D, the player is more attached to this character because you actually did something to save them. And Rex can still learn the lesson since it was a close call, and baby Azurda can still ride around in his helmet. Boom, fixed your game. Too many cutscenes. You see, I actually like cutscenes in video games, but in this game, they are too long and there are too many. Cutscenes can be a great way of storytelling and getting the player invested, and the cutscenes in Xenoblade 2 are really well done. Some of them are even made by Digital Frontier, the same studio that makes some of those flashy HD Smash Bros. Trailers. And even saying that there's too many is an inaccurate statement. It's more so that it feels like there's too many because the gameplay to cutscene ratio is all over the place. A lot of the individual cutscenes feel a little overindulgent and overly long. You'll often watch 3, 4, 5 cutscenes in a row before you go back to playing the game, especially at the beginning and ending of chapters. Or you'll watch a cutscene, take like 10 steps forwards, and then watch another cutscene. But it really feels like there's too many because I personally am not getting invested in this story. I tried, y'all, I really did. But between the hokey dialogue and predictable plot and characters I just don't gel with, I never got into it. And again, I like cutscenes, but it's like the difference between drinking water and drowning in it. Too much is too much. Pretty soon you make it to Gormott proper. It's a big grassy area and it's the first area that feels like a big open area. Stop me if you've heard this one before. There's no denying that the area looks great. This game is way better than like Pokemon Sword and Shield, for instance. And it's cool that you can see the Titan's head in the distance. But at the same time, compared to the previous games, the areas in Xenoblade 2 feel chunky. Wait, no, that's not the right word. They're in chunks. They're segmented. In the previous games, the areas were much more expansive. Your first time in an area, you had no idea how long they went on for, which would make you want to explore and find out. Plus, you could often see other areas in the distance. But in Xenoblade 2, they're all separated islands, and they feel smaller because you can look in one direction, see its head, look in the other direction, see its butt, and that's the whole area. Plus, a lot of the Titans later in the game are indoors, so you can see all 4 walls of the area and be like, well, that's pretty much the whole place. There's also no sign if the enemies here will attack you on their own or not. The previous 2 games had icons telling you if the enemies would attack if you got too close or if they saw you. It was a good way of planning out your route and deciding which enemies to avoid. Xenoblade 2 replaces that with nothing. You make it to the city of Torigoth and watch a sort of funny cutscene with Nia getting mad at a poorly drawn wanted poster of her. Why does this sound familiar? But with the pauses between lines of dialogue, the cartoony sound effects like it's a telenovela, lens flare eyes, and music that goes, here's a funny scene. It's a funny scene. It kinda overdoes it a little bit. You then watch a cutscene about blade summoning, but you don't unlock blade summoning yet. They also talk about needing potential to be able to summon a blade. As far as I know, they never fully explain what potential or aptitude entails, even though it ties in one of your party members' entire storyline and motivation. And it's not about being a good person like the cutscene implies, since there are multiple villains and assholes who are drivers too. You then do 2 back-to-back boss fights where you fight a bunch of soldiers and then you immediately fight Bridget, and you lose and die and have to go grind levels. At least that's what happens to me and other people I've seen play this game for the first time. Everyone dies in this fight if you didn't grind levels or explore a bunch earlier. Maybe you were originally supposed to have another blade here, and the fight was balanced around that, which is why it's so hard now. Usually how the main story in Xenoblade games works is, you never have to grind levels as long as you fight most of the enemies between you and your destination. Otherwise, if you skip too many, you'll probably be underleveled for the next story boss fight. However, with this first boss fight, when I was in my second playthrough, I remembered it being a pretty big difficulty spike, so I fought all of the enemies and still grinded levels a little bit before entering Torigoth on my second playthrough, and still fucking lost. It doesn't help that you're arbitrarily limited to 1 blade and only 3 arts over 2 hours into the game, but yeah, even though I've beaten the final boss before and specifically made sure to grind levels before this fight, I still lost, had to go grind more levels. One of the things I like about Xenoblade games is that you don't have to grind levels. I absolutely hate mandatory level grinding. Some people find mindlessly grinding levels relaxing, but I think it's an artificial gameplay lengthener and I don't find it fun. Before, as long as you don't skip a lot of enemies in your path, you're good. This marks the first time ever in a Xenoblade game where I had to grind levels just to progress normally through the story. So after grinding levels, you fight the soldiers, then fight Bridget, who's a blade, and it's weird how a blade can fight without a driver, especially at the beginning of the game where you're still establishing the rules of your world to the player. But she's apparently so powerful that she can just do that. And thank goodness subtitles are on by default, because you can't hear any of what Bridget says over the background music in the cutscene.
My driver is otherwise engaged at present. I am here alone.
What is this, one of my videos? After going back and redoing the boss battle, once again the cutscenes act like the previous battle did not just happen, and Nia and Dromark get captured by something that not a single Splatoon player has ever heard of.
This is an Ethernet!
But then, Tora the Nopon saved Rex and Pyra. Here's a question. Why did Tora the Nopon and Torna, the group of bad guys, have similar sounding names? You don't give 2 completely unrelated things similar sounding names if they have literally nothing to do with each other. This is literally a beginner writer's mistake. In my first playthrough, I remember recruiting Tora and thinking, wait, wasn't that the name of the bad guys? It just leads to unnecessary confusion in a game that already has a lot of characters and factions introduced to you right at the start. After 7 minutes of cutscenes, you do the cooking tutorial, a mechanic you never have to use for the rest of the game, and then after another 6 minutes of cutscenes, you walk around the town talking to specific people for information on where Nia is being held. This amounts to the artificial gameplay lengthener of talking to 4 people who say they know nothing important, and the last person gives you all the info you need. During this section, Pyra also wears a cute robe that you can only wear during this section of the game, unless you buy the DLC! A better way to do this would be to give hints and have the characters piece it together, maybe even have it be a running joke when one character is consistently wrong, or God forbid, have the player piece together themselves, but instead the last person you talk to just tells you all of what you need to know. Tora tells you that since he doesn't have potential to become a driver, he says that if you help him finish his artificial blade that he's been building, he'll help you save Nia. You also, finally, 4 hours into the game, unlock blade summoning, which is the stupid gacha game part of this game. Blade summoning. Now it's time to talk about a system that makes this game unique from all the other Xenoblade games, and is also one of the worst parts of this game, blade summoning. So in this game, instead of learning new battle techniques by leveling up or progressing through the story, you instead learn new techniques by summoning a randomly determined new blade from a core crystal, and having them awkwardly stand behind you in combat. How do you get new core crystals? Mostly powerful enemies drop them after you defeat them, or sometimes as a side quest reward. You pick a driver to be bonded to the blade, then the game shows you the silhouette of blades you're not getting, and then you watch a really cringy cutscene of the blade dancing around, and then you get the blade. In the current version of the game, you are prompted to skip the entire cutscene, which you should definitely do. You're not missing anything, but the first time I played it in version 1.0, you could only skip the second half of the cutscene. Blades are everything in this game. They determine what arts you can use in combat, what passive abilities you have during combat, your character's stats in combat, what weapons you can use during combat, your character's role during combat if they're going to be a tank, healer, DPS, or a mixture, what exploration and traversal abilities you can use outside of combat, how many items you get from collection points, what side quests you can do, certain mercenary missions you can accept, what heart-to-hearts you can view. Blades are unique to Xenoblade 2 and are everything in Xenoblade 2. The problem with blades is that they ruin every single system in this game that they're a part of. There are common blades which all look more or less the same and are mostly useless. They could have at least palette swapped them to make them match their element, but instead they're all gray. But it doesn't matter because the common blades are all placeholders until you get the unique rare blades, which all look fucking stupid. Obviously design is subjective. There are plenty of people who think that these designs look good. To me, I already talked about how all the female blades are mostly over-sexualized messes, but all of the rare blades designs just look so dumb. They're all a mishmash of colors and a fucking eyesore. Most of these designs wouldn't work in any other video game, and they don't work here either. A lot of different artists made different blades, and I recognize some of these names. These are good character designers. So what the fuck happened here? What was the design prompt for these? Hey, you know that cringy OC you made back in middle school when you're still learning how to draw? Yeah, give us that. All of the blades in this game look like Kmart brand Digimon. You know you're in trouble when the most normal looking blades are designed by Tetsuya Nomura, the guy who designs the characters for Kingdom Hearts? Oh no. Of the unique blades, there are 9 male blades and 33 female blades. Keep in mind, blades are artificial life forms that stand behind you during combat, support you, follow your orders, come from rocks, and look like this. This is some of the most figurative and literal objectification of women I've seen in any media. The game isn't making any sort of commentary on sexualization or objectification, it's just doing it.
I'd especially like to hear about your views on women.
And of course, in true Xenoblade 2 fashion, most of the voices don't match the characters, and all of them have kind of annoying voices. Great. The summon rate for rare blades is low. I can't really give an actual figure since it's determined by a lot of different factors like pity rate and your luck stat, but it's like less than 10% low. So over 90% of the time, you're going to be getting trash. A system where you randomly summon party members is usually something you'd find in a shitty mobile game, not in a full console release. All of your techniques and abilities are randomly determined, so the game designers can't really design enemies around what techniques you'll have, since it's all completely random. On one hand, it makes every playthrough unique. You'll be getting different blades in different order each time. But on the other hand, I don't want to replay the game because it's not very well designed and I fucking hate gacha games. In gacha games, you get spammed with things you do not want in an attempt to obtain the few things you do want. The key for a gacha game system to work is that the player has to see value in the items they received but did not want. That way they'll keep playing it and won't get discouraged when you keep giving them garbage. For example, Fire Emblem Heroes, a game I play every day but do not like, simply because I like Fire Emblem more than I hate gacha games. There's like a 3% chance you'll get the rare character you actually want. However, you can use the characters you do not want to transfer some of their skills over to better units or exchange them for feathers to power up other units. And more importantly, when you get a lower tier unit, you can rank them up into a 5-star unit to make them more viable. And when you get repeat units, you can combine them into stronger ones. So when you're summoning new units and not getting the ones you want, you don't feel like they're completely worthless. This isn't what I wanted, but I can make use of this eventually. Even in gachapon machines, the capsule machines that gacha games are named after, you still physically get an object, even if it wasn't the one you wanted. You can sell it, you can trade with someone else. But in Xenoblade 2, not only does it have a stupid gacha game system, but it's also a bad gacha game system. You get common blades for days, and they're mostly pretty useless compared to rare blades because they have so little value. A common blade is way less powerful than a rare blade and has way fewer abilities, so if you get a rare blade, it makes no sense to keep the common one equipped unless they have some super rare ultimate ability or whatever it's called. Not only that, but common blades are very limited in how strong they can become. Blades are ranked out of 5 stars, with all rare blades being 5-star blades. But if you get a 1 or 2 or 3 or 4-star common blade, they're stuck there. There's no way to make them more powerful or on par with a rare blade. Later in the game, you can send them on mercenary missions to get items, money, and experience points, but you can already send rare blades on those missions, so why would you send a common blade? The only use they'll have is to maybe help fulfill the field skill checkpoint requirements, and oh boy, do I have a lot to say about field skills later. Or you can dismiss them to maybe get a booster, which increases the chance of a certain element the next time you summon more blades. So if you look up online which rare blades you don't have, you can slightly increase your chances of getting them by an unspecified amount. But you can only hold 5 boosters at once. So you have to alternate between the summoning screen and the releasing screen because game design? And the game tries to make you feel bad about releasing your useless blades and having them sound sad. Like it's not my fault you're so poorly designed. I feel like if maybe this game had another year or two in the oven, they could have doubled or tripled or quadrupled the number of unique rare blades in the game, reduced the number of core crystals you receive, and gotten rid of common blades altogether. Then every time you summon, you get a new unique blade, rather than 90% of summoning being useless trash. And then you could summon duplicates and you can combine them together to power them up or fill in your affinity chart somewhere or something. How to explain it in the story? I don't know, just say the Aegis's power can do that from all the information she's gathered. Her power set is already whatever the plot needs her to do in that moment. Gacha games are essentially loot box systems. They're specifically designed to serve as gambling for children, which is immoral and despicable. They incentivize intentionally bad and cynical game design that's a detriment to the player's experience. They have no valid place in gaming, and I hate them. There's always a chance you'll get the one you want, and the more you pull, the higher the chances increase, so the next one might be the one you want, so keep trying. To the game's credit, there are a handful of blades you get from doing side quests or through story progression, but the vast majority of them are from random chance. But also, the few you do get from side quests, you have to wait several real-world hours till you can actually use that blade. So you go through the multi-part quest, you get your reward, but then you have to wait an unspecified amount of time until you can actually use the quest reward. Why? And some people may think,
oh, well, at least you can't pay real-life money for more core crystals in this game, so it's fine.
Two things. First of all, just because you're nice to a girl doesn't mean she has to have sex with you. You don't score points and get rewarded for doing the thing you're supposed to be doing all the time. So no, the game isn't fine because it doesn't have monetized loot boxes. And secondly, you absolutely can pay more money for more core crystals. If you bought the expansion pass, you start the game with a fuck ton of rare and legendary core crystals, and you get a rare blade literally every other summon. This is part of the reason I liked the game better the second time I played it, because right at the start, I was able to skip the whole gacha game part of it. I got a bunch of rare blades right from the beginning, and I didn't have to summon anymore. The game got better when one of its integral systems was entirely removed. The game got better because there's less of it. If you can remove large parts of a game and it gets better, maybe don't have those parts! Again, this system is only in Xenoblade 2. It's not even in its prequel DLC. What if when it comes out, Breath of the Wild 2 has a stupid gacha game system in it? You'd probably be like, wait a minute, why does this game series suddenly have a stupid gacha game system in it? And what if this system was integral to all the other systems? What if instead of designing the game around the player's abilities, Link randomly gets a new item from a gachapon generator?
There's a 5% chance you'll randomly get the hookshot. By the way, you can't make it past this part later in the game unless you have the hookshot.
You'd probably say, wait a minute, that's a stupid fucking way to design a video game.
That's basically what happens in Xenoblade Chronicles 2!
Back to the game. You help Tora finish his robot either by salvaging for the items you need or by paying a shop a large fee. I like the fact that the game gives you an option on how to complete the quest here, even though the pay the fee option is way more money than most players would have at this point, even after grinding levels. But it's nice that you have options. You watch the cutscene of Tora's artificial blade Poppy coming to life, and while it admittedly is a kind of funny scene, it's revealed that Poppy was pre-programmed to be a maid robot, like an anime maid, if you catch my drift. A sex robot is clearly a sex robot. Meanwhile, in Xenoblade Chronicles 1...
By the time the air raid siren sounded, a swarm of Mechon had blackened the sky. They ate people and burned our buildings. Me and Juju dedicated ourselves to evacuating the children and elderly.
Meanwhile, in Xenoblade Chronicles X...
They're all dead. You killed them all. In cold blood.
Fortune did not smile upon them today.
Nelson.
Meanwhile, in Xenoblade Chronicles 2...
Poppy? How may I be of service, Master?
Xenoblade 2 problem. Anime? I get that for this game they wanted the story to have a lighter tone, but there's a difference between having a lighter tone and not being able to take the story seriously at all for various reasons. And there's no denying that this game has a lot of anime influences in its style and tone. But Mr. Spaceman, all 3 games were super anime, I hear you say, and you'd be right, but here's my take on it. I sort anime into 2 categories. There's anime, and then there's anime. There's the type that you show to your friends to get them into anime, and then there's the type that you don't want someone to walk in on you watching. It's a spectrum, you know? I'd put the first 2 games in the first category, and Xenoblade 2 has a lot of moments that fall squarely into the second category. Let's have all the women have big honking titties. Let's have a scene where the protagonist touches her chest. Oops. Let's have a hot spring scene right in the main story. Let's have the potato chicken be horny. Why does the chicken have a maid fetish? You can write a character however you want. No one is making you do this. There's nothing wrong with partaking in and liking the second category. Life is short, watch whatever you want. Be the raccoon you were meant to be and dig through that trash. But for me, this 100% definitely is not my thing. And most of my friends who I talk to who do like Xenoblade 2 also have an appetite for trash anime. These are not coincidences. A prerequisite for liking Xenoblade 2 is liking trash anime. And there's nothing inherently wrong with a game being trash anime, but the previous 2 games weren't trash anime, so why is this one suddenly trash anime? The party goes to rescue Nia, and there's an admittedly pretty funny scene involving Rex accidentally implying Pyro's fat. In my first draft of this video, I wrote that this is the funniest Xenoblade game, but I'm not sure how true that is. It's definitely the silliest one. It has the highest number of jokes, but it also has the highest number of jokes that don't land. But obviously humor is subjective, and everyone finds different jokes funny. To me, this game just has a really awkward sense of humor. I might cringe at one joke, but then literally the next line of dialogue, I'll be laughing out loud. I'm getting comedy whiplash. You go walk around a ship to save Nia. This is where I disagree with a certain praise I often hear for this game, in that all its areas are very good looking. I don't totally agree. There are 4 good looking areas: Gormott, Uraya, Leftharium, and Tantol. Maybe Indol too, but it's pretty empty overall. The rest of the areas in the game are a drab looking ship, some caves, a drab looking wasteland, a drab looking wasteland, a drab looking factory, another drab looking cave, some drab-looking cliffs, a destroyed city, an empty futuristic Amazon warehouse that you're inside of for the last quarter of the game. I'm not saying that every area in a game needs to look good. I'm saying that if 1/3 of the areas look good, and then 2/3 of the areas not so much, I wouldn't say that the whole game looks good, you know? That's not math. In fighting through the ship, you encounter the biggest meme of this game, the more Ardain soldiers. Bad battle dialogue. In Xenoblade 2, every battle is audibly a mess. Like in a lot of JRPGs, the characters talk a lot during the battles. The previous games had a lot of spoken lines of dialogue during combat, but they used a lot of call and response between the characters to prevent them from all talking over each other. Plus, a lot of their battle lines were quick yells like, ha, yeah! But there's no denying that both the games still had a handful of battles that were a bit on the audio chaos side.
Now we're pulling together. Focus on this. Thank you, Dunban.
But in Xenoblade 2, you have 3 drivers, all with speaking lines, and 3 blades, also all with speaking lines. There is some call and response between each blade and driver, but not amongst the whole group. So you'll often have upwards of 6 party members all talking at the same time. And each one says like a full paragraph for every attack. Yeah, you'll never beat me because I'm the best at everything and you're going down. Hoya, according to all known laws of aviation, there's no way a bee should be able to fly. Not only do many of the drivers and blades have annoying voices, but the writing for their battle lines is some of the worst in the entire game. Some of it sounds like placeholder dialogue that they forgot to fix later. If your game, unironically, has the main character repeat the line, "We'll beat them with the power of friendship" in every single battle for a 70-hour game, then congratulations, your game has bad writing. Every single battle you're gonna hear, "Let's show them a thing or 3. Let's show them a thing or 3. I guess I really am the best. I like your attitude. Here I come, Radio Gormotti. Here I come, Radio Gormotti. Think you can take me? Think you can take me? Don't forget me.
I think that enemy got the point. I think that enemy got the point.
It's insufferable. Who listened to this and decided, yes, this should be the final product. This is my vision realized. Every battle is like this. And the problem is even worse in one of the multiple fights where you're fighting other drivers who talk, and they have their own blades who also talk. It's a nightmare of cacophony. And the more Ardain soldiers have one of 3 lines and spam them every second. Why wouldn't you limit the number of simultaneously playing audio tracks? This is like the quality you'd see in a student project, not in a full price release made by professionals. And while it may have led to a funny meme, that doesn't retroactively make shitty game design good. Plus they tried to patch it out later, so it clearly wasn't even intentional. After you save Nia and you finally have 3 permanent party members like 3 to 4 hours into the game, on your way out of the ship, you fight a boss who runs around and hides behind his blade after every attack. Keep in mind, you can't move an attack, and you run very slowly during combat. So the fight isn't hard, it's just annoying. Kind of a microcosm of the whole game. And then you watch a cutscene, take 10 steps forward, watch another cutscene, then fight the best character in the game, Morag. And by fight, I mean you beat her in the gameplay, and then the cutscene switches to you getting your ass whooped. Which brings me to Ludonarrative Dissonance. I define Ludonarrative Dissonance as what happens in the gameplay doesn't match what happens in the story to such an extent that the player goes, oh come on, what the fuck? That last part is very important. That's where the dissonance part comes in, because a lot of things that could be disingenuously described as ludonarrative dissonance, I would put into the category of, fuck it, it's a video game. For example, in Breath of the Wild, Link being able to carry a bunch of food items and weapons and armor, even when he's not wearing pants, he's able to pause the game and eat an entire meal in the middle of a battle, I'd put that into the category of, fuck it, it's a video game. In a lot of games, being able to ignore the main story, even if it's a big apocalyptic threat, and do much of side quests instead, fuck it, it's a video game. Even in Xenoblade 2, being able to fast travel to other locations, even when in the story you're trapped there and would have no way of otherwise getting out, fuck it, it's a video game. But the reasons I'm able to excuse those things is because the game design decisions benefit the player's experience. Breath of the Wild wouldn't be better if you couldn't carry armor and weapons and food and stuff for the sake of realism or whatever. But you know what doesn't benefit the player's experience? Asking them to learn your unintuitive battle system, fighting and winning against the boss to progress, and then telling them that, oh, that battle you just won? No, that didn't actually happen. Here's what actually happened. You see, usually how the interactive medium of video games works is you have your pre-battle scene to amp up the player for the fight. Then you have the player play the game in a section that's representative of the battle, and then you have the resolution, the denouement, the post-battle stuff that happens after they've won, after the player used their agency to triumph over the obstacle you put in their path. You know what undermines that flow? Amping the player up for a fight, then having the battle start with yet another fucking tutorial on a random mechanic, or having them win and their reward for winning the game is telling them, oh no, you see here, you actually lost that battle. I think the intent might have been to reward the player with a cool animated cutscene to watch after they beat the boss, and it'd be one thing if it was like a cool finishing move, but the cutscene just keeps going on and on and on, and the player is just like, didn't I reduce you to 0 HP? And the cutscene starts with me getting my ass whooped? This game is an Ouroboros of shitty game design. The gameplay undercuts the story by having important story battles be tutorials, and then the story undercuts the gameplay by having you win in the game and lose in the cutscene. To the game's credit, some of the time your characters do eventually win in the cutscene, but some of the time you just flat out lose in the cutscene, or you have to flee for your life at the end. You see the problem here? My player agency is being removed. I don't feel like I triumphed at all. I feel like my accomplishment is being ignored in favor of the game telling its own shitty story with its annoying ass characters. And then even if you lose in the gameplay, you get a game over and have to redo the battle just to lose in the cutscene anyway. What difference does it make? I'm not saying that the game should have multiple routes based on whether you win or lose. I'm saying don't have me outright win in the game and then immediately contradict what I did in the game. If you're not supposed to defeat that enemy yet, maybe don't have the player reduce them to 0 HP and maybe have the battle end early, like, I don't know, like the first game did. The blueprint is right there.
When you reduce an enemy to 0 HP, That means they're defeated, not, oh, we're gonna pretend like you didn't just play the game and then have the result be decided in the cutscene instead.
At this point, if you're going to ignore the player's input into this interactive medium, why even make it interactive? You have overly long cutscenes that are representative of the entire battle. Why make the player play through a fake battle first? Why make the player play it at all? Why make it a video game at all? If you wanted to make an anime, just make an anime. You're already done. The game has 14 hours of cutscenes. That's enough for 26 episodes and a movie.
Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe so that you're notified about when the final parts of this overly long and long overdue series come out. Leave a comment if you agreed or disagreed with me, and use code word, I don't know, banana in your comment so that I know you actually made it to the end of the video. You can also check out my other videos that aren't me whining for 2 hours about a game I don't like that everyone else seems to like, right over here on this playlist. I've been told they're pretty good, much better than this one, that's for sure. And that's it, video's over.